Um, this is Chibi Genji. Obviously, you're at my channel. You should know who I am. And if not, and somehow the YouTube algorithm got you here, well, hi, my name is Chibi Genji. So I was listening slash watching the Disney Food Blogs entry on weather in, how to survive Disney World weather in hurricane season. And I wanted to give a perspective on that as a former cast member. Um, Now I'm gonna try not to give out any I guess break the magic information here, but a lot of this because at the time I was a cast member, we were told, oh, don't tell guests about this, don't tell guests about that. It was kind of this big secret, but I'm guessing nowadays they just sort of they don't care. Or maybe it's just such common knowledge now that, I feel like I could talk about it. That being, of course, the quote unquote underground at the Magic Kingdom. Which I say quote unquote underground because it's not underground. It's the Magic Kingdom was built on top of this. It's the utility corridors, I believe that's what it's called. I'll be honest with you, my memory's a little fuzzy on the exact details, but I remember being told as a cast member when I went there in 2005 that, we're not supposed to tell guests about it. Like, they're not supposed to know. Anyways, that's not the point here. But it does have some impact on this story. So I was a cast member in 2005. I was part of the college program. That would be, if you know what it is, great. If you don't know what it is, I'll explain. There's a program where, representatives of Disney will come to your college, and what it is that they basically try to recruit people to work. It's kind of like either entry level positions, or it's a little hiring recruiting station. Most of the time, your work is temporary. Mine was 6 months. You could do classes during it. Most of the classes they had was like marketing or whatnot. I never attended the classes because I was a fool. Should have, would have, could have. And I took this as an opportunity to, just sort of, spread my wings, see how it would be like to work at Disney, the Walt Disney World Resorts especially. Because, as you can tell by my art, Disney had greatly inspired me as a kid. I was always like, oh, I want to work for Disney in the animation department. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out. But I digress. So, I went in there and I got a gig in the Magic Kingdom. The best kingdom. And if anyone disagrees with me, you're welcome to your opinion. You know what? That's fine. I'm not one of those people. So, at first I was and this is relevant to the story. At first I was a busser for the Pecos Bill Cafe. And, cute outfit and everything. I had to wear a dress, but, and usually I'm like, ugh, yuck, dresses. Because I'm a rebel like that. I just don't look good in dresses, and the whole feeling exposed did not help me. But whatever. Once again, this is important to the story. So I was there for about a month and a half, I want to say. And then after a while, they let you you can be cross-employed. Like, you can work half your shift or one shift in a different area and then take a break and then move to the next area. And at the time I can't remember if it was something I volunteered for or It was something that was expected of us, and it was like everyone had to do it. But I was cross-employed to park greeter, same place, Magic Kingdom. So I would spend, and most of my shifts were like ranging somewhere between 6 to 8 hours. I would do my first half as park greeter of the day as park greeter. Then I do the second half of the day. Take like maybe 30 minutes to an hour lunch, depending on if I had 6 or 8 hours. And then I would, go to the locker rooms, dress up in my little cowgirl dress. And then I'd go to finish my shift at the Pecos Bill Cafe in Frontierland. And, of course, the reason why they have the utility corridors at Walt Disney World Resort, or at least at the Magic Kingdom, was because Walt Disney didn't want people to see like a cowboy walking through Tomorrowland. Broke the immersion and such. And that's understandable. I remembered the Halloween event being in Adventureland. I was in there between Adventureland and Frontierland, and there, clear as day, is Darth Vader and some stormtroopers, doing, like photo ops. And these were cast members. These weren't just some random people walking into the park because, as you know, adults can't wear masks. So, and I'm pretty sure Disney would have caught up with them if they weren't, official employees. Or I would at least hope so. I don't know. And I just remember looking at that, and I wasn't like irrationally mad, but I was annoyed. I'm like, really? If you're going to be anywhere in the Magic Kingdom, you should be in Tomorrowland. But whatever. Not the point. So, so I had by the time this event happened, I had a routine. Well, 2005, as you may or may not know, that was when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. Not sure if you can tell by my accent, when people say I have an accent, but I don't hear it, of course. I'm from Louisiana. Now, granted, I'm not from the New Orleans area, but I do have family further south from New Orleans, in Lafourche Parish and Thibodaux Parish. Thibodaux Parish? Or is that a city? I just made myself look dumb. Anyways, who cares? So, so I have family in that area. And I remember working during that time, and it was just, I survived, and I say survived. I endured one or two hurricanes before that. The major hurricane that I remember going through was Andrew, and that didn't really hit much of Louisiana, but I remember that having a huge impact on me because my family down south, they ended up staying at our house during that time. But I don't think the hurricane ever really hit hard. So, but my grandmother, Beth, awesome woman, she survived Betsy, she survived Camille, she survived all these other hurricanes. So by the time they found out that Katrina was heading towards New Orleans and that it was going to be a big one, she and the rest of her children down further south straight up like, yeah, we're leaving. We're going to Tennessee. We're going someplace or whatever. And apparently it never got around to me. And so when Katrina happened, and my immediate family, my mom, my brother, and sister, they lived a little bit outside of Baton Rouge. So we're more of central Louisiana, and it's not often that central Louisiana gets hit by hurricanes. We get worse weather during the summer months. So I wasn't too worried, but seeing the damage on the television, watching the news, being away from home and all that, I had like this huge homesickness. The communication towers, the telephone towers were just absolutely screwed. I mean, I couldn't get a hold of my family, both immediate and extended, for 2 whole weeks. And I swear this is all important to the hurricane that hit Disney at that time. So please be patient with me. I have ADD, and I'm trying to focus on that, and this art seems to be working for now. So, so I hadn't heard from them for weeks, and as an employer, Disney was they were extremely helpful. They were understanding, as, they couldn't let me off work, but they also were, they were willing to work with me. When I finally did get in contact with them, my manager pulled me aside, and HR helped me. They sent me to HR, and HR helped me pick out a flight so I can go, help me get the time off that I need to go visit them, because they could see that this really affected me. Because at the time, I didn't know how it was. I didn't know how bad it was for my section of, where my family was living. And I didn't even know if the likes of my grandmother, grandpa, aunts, uncles, cousins, I didn't know they were in Tennessee and they were safe. I didn't know any of that. We couldn't get in contact with them. So that being said, so kudos to Disney. They were extremely helpful there. And I'm pretty sure it would have worked. They would have done what they could, given if I was an employee or a guest, I suppose. So, weeks later, or is it a month later? My time is skewed in my head. I don't know time anymore. It's all irrelevant. Relative. Whatever, I'm tired. So, months later, or weeks later, Wilma is heading towards, it turns out that Hurricane Wilma, was heading towards Florida, and it looked like it was actually going to go through Central Florida, which, as Disney Food Blog explained, is not, it's not a usual occurrence. And the way that hurricanes work, they need a fresh source of waters, mainly, preferably hot, to function, to keep their strength. And Disney World is in Central Florida, so there, if the hurricane was going to hit the park, which it did, obviously, otherwise I would be telling this story, it wouldn't be as bad. Like, it wasn't going to be another Katrina. It wasn't. Not for Central Florida. Unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for, for Mexico and the Bahamas and the Caribbeans and all. And if I'm forgetting a nation, I apologize. But yeah, they really got, the ones who really got hit. The ones who are right there next to the coast. But, still Disney was going to play it safe, as well as they should. So their policy for employees at the time, I don't know if it's still the case, was you're going to be, at least for the college program, they were like, you're going to be in one of 2 places. You're either going to be at your apartments, which they provided apartment complexes, that they took money out of directly from your paycheck, so you didn't have to worry about paying rent, so long as you worked, of course. If you didn't work, then yeah, you got bigger problems than a hurricane coming, I guess. You're either going to be at your apartment, where they could, they could contact you and they can make sure you're safe, keep you indoors, or you would be at the park that you're supposed to work that day. or you would be in the parks. And it depended on which park you worked at. If you worked at a hotel, technically you stayed at the hotel if you were scheduled to work that day. By that time, I had a definitive schedule. Like, I was working Monday through Fridays, first half of my day at as park greeter, and then second half of the day as busser at Pecos Bill in Frontierland. I had that schedule all worked out. I always looked out. So I knew ahead of time whenever they said, that you're either going to be here or there. I knew, I'm going to be in the park. I wonder how this will work. Well, I was at the Magic Kingdom. I don't know how they did it at Epcot or MGM or Hollywood. I think it was Hollywood Studio. They called it Hollywood Studios at the time. And I was just, I don't know. Not important. I don't know how they did it. And I probably never will unless someone would like to explain it to me here. But we were in the best position. We had that whole utility corridor, which was extremely useful because you felt, I guess if you were like claustrophobic or whatever, which it was pretty big, and I'm pretty claustrophobic, so I never felt that way. But I felt safe because it's like, yeah, I like to see this hurricane try to do anything. Oh, but what about flooding? Don't worry. Flooding, at least at that time, was not an issue. So, I want to say it was 3 to 4 in the morning, the Disney buses, which is how we got to work if you didn't bring your own vehicle, would come and pick us up. So I got picked up, and, at the time, the policy was, sign in wherever you're supposed to start your shift. There are several sign-in stations set up throughout the park, throughout the underground, throughout the utility corridor. And one of the biggest problems that Disney had at the time, and probably still does unless everything's changed, were their cast members showing up late, running a little late. They, let's say they're supposed to be in Frontierland. When the bus drops them off, or the shuttle drops them off, rather, because you take a bus and then you take a shuttle. They'd be like, oh, I'm running late. The shuttle shows up at the back of the park, which is Fantasyland. So they'll sign in at Fantasyland and then and they're like, well, technically I'm clocked in. And then they would walk over and take their time getting to, say, like where I was supposed to be, which was the exact opposite of the park, which was the entrance. Of course, by the time I did that, I found it was easier for me to, put on an oversized jacket to hide the fact that I'm in uniform. And I'd take the monorail to get to work because, it's like, well, it's quicker, it's right there. And obviously it was a choice. I'd get off the bus at the ticket and transportation system. And they said, yeah, this is an option. Go ahead and do this. That way you don't have to walk all the way from Fantasyland to the front of the park. Well, I couldn't do that this time around because the monorails weren't running because it was a hurricane. So understandable. I mean, not griping. So I'm at the Fantasyland entrance. And I have a few people there and we all have to come in uniform in case they open the park, which they ended up doing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I show up at the Fantasyland entrance. And, there's several other employees there. Well, they know I'm from Louisiana. And so they think oh, you know everything about hurricanes, right? And I'm just like, I know some things about hurricanes. I don't know everything. I live in central Louisiana, which doesn't see a lot of hurricanes, and when we do, it's usually weakened by, traveling through the land. But sure, whatever, I can help you out. And so they were, they're like, okay. So we all went together, and we all were like, okay, well, should we clock in at Fantasyland as we're not supposed to, or should we clock in at, at our stations, at our workstations? And I was like, I don't know why you're asking me, but I would say, and they didn't tell us otherwise. So I'm like, well, they didn't tell us otherwise, so we'll go ahead and we'll go to the front of the park where we're supposed to and clock in at our station there. So we make the trek. You can't hear the hurricane's there by this time. There's some wind, but you can't really hear it from the utility corridor. You can't really, whatever. And what little you can hear, it's not that scary. Like, I've heard worse in regular southeast southern weather. We got lucky. So, so we're just going through, kind of not super lighthearted, but none of us are really scared anymore. Or at least I'm not. Oops. Dummy. Okay. Ooh, I don't like that. Nope, don't like that at all. Anyways, so, and we get to where it doesn't, the underground, the corridor does not cover every nook and cranny, alright? So that being said, there was a point, and this is where I was kind of dreading this whole experience, that we had to go upstairs. And by upstairs, I mean into the park. You would go up and you'd end up somewhere between, I want to say it was somewhere between the train station and then, somewhere between the train station and then the park's entrance. And it was maybe I want to say not even 20 feet where you had to walk from one area to the other. So, I was like, okay, well, they're like, oh, should we go up there? And I'm like, let's take a look. Let's see how it is first, and then we'll decide if it's safe to go up. Because while I know that Disney would want us to clock in and, do what we have to do, get to work, I'm also pretty darn certain that they're like, don't risk your life just trying to clock in on time, considering there's a goddamn hurricane going on. So I'm like, okay, well, let's go upstairs, give it a look, see how it is. And this is, by this point, it's a category 1. Not too bad, but not something you're going to want to walk around in. So I went up there, and we were up there for a total of a few seconds. We saw one of the trash bins, one of the heavy trash bins, you just kind of not floating, but skiing along a few feet. We saw that, we looked at each other, the three of us, and we were just like, no. We're going to clock in wherever the hell we can. So I think we ended up clocking in at, obviously not Fantasyland, but I want to say it was somewhere in Tomorrowland? I think it was Tomorrowland. Or Main Street USA. There was some clock-in station there. And when we told our manager about it, he was like, he was trying to be nice. He was trying not to say, why the hell did y'all go out there in the first place, you morons? Which, thank you, manager, whose name I can't remember, I apologize, for not being completely mean about it, even though I could see it in your eyes. I guess that's the point of being, working at Disney, is that you can, you may think these things sometimes, but you're so into the customer service and, human decency that you're like, yeah, no. That's not the proper way to approach this subject. So, and then after that, they're like, okay, well, go to go to this area. That's where everybody is stationed today until we get the all clear. So, and I can't remember exactly what section of the corridor or what section of the park this break room was, but it was crowded, as to be expected. People were just chilling. We were talking to each other, cast members. I found a unused and probably broken, which was, I do think this was in Tomorrowland, because I've, oh, hang on, someone's calling me. Might be important. Telemarketer. Probably to try to tell me my warranty is out of whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. Kiss my booty. So, because I found a unused, open, arcade kiosk of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'm guessing it was, you kind of like you see the Jurassic Park one, where it's this big kiosk that kind of looks like a car, and then you go inside and you shoot things. And I know it was Deep Space Nine because it said it was. I didn't watch Deep Space Nine, until later, but I recognized some of the characters. So I was like, oh yeah, okay, I know who that guy is. That guy. I recognize this or whatever, and it said bold letters, Deep Space Nine. So I'm not really I'm not some expert on that. So I found that kiosk, and I'm a short person. I'm not 4'8" size, but like my grandmother. But I am a short person with short legs. And so I was like, okay, cool. I found what I'm going to be doing until the park opens again. So I curled up in there and I went to sleep. And this was maybe 6 in the morning by this point. So around noonish, we get, someone finds me. And they're like, yeah, they're about, the hurricane's passed. And they have a team, because they had it in 3 teams, and I was in team C, or the third wave. The first wave was the emergency people, who I believe were there overnight. And then the next wave were the people who were going to go in and clean the park. Or something. The first wave would be the ones to check if the park was suitable for reopen, or, I guess put certain things in place to prevent, I guess the carousel of progress gets swept away somehow. I don't know. I was on the third route. Group. I was in the third group, which was to be the ones to open, to be there when the park opens. So they was like, yeah, they just sent out the first group, and the second group's about to, go in. And I'm like, oh, wow, they really gonna open the park after a hurricane? And she was like, it looks like it. And sure enough, okay, I apologize, it wasn't noon, it was 11. By noon, the third group of people, aka me and all the other people who are set to work, were told, okay, we're opening the park, go to your stations. Well, that was around the time that me and some fellow, well, myself, sorry, my grammar's bad. That myself and some fellow park greeters, who were also bussers for Pecos Bill Cafe, were supposed to switch out and move over to move over to Pecos Bill anyways. So we were like, oh, so do we change our uniforms? And I said, ask your manager from Pecos Bill, not the one that we had for park greeter. I'm like, okay, I guess that's fair. That's understandable. So we make the trek to we make our trek to Frontierland, which is no easy feat. It does take a while, because if you know where Tomorrowland to Frontierland is, it's, there's some considerable space we got to go through. Walking we have to go through. So we make it all the way there because for some reason, either we couldn't use our phones in the, while we're in the corridor, or it wasn't working. And we did try calling first, because that would be the logical thing to do. I can't remember exactly, but it was one of those where it's like, oh, it's getting close, we better head over. But do we change our outfits? In order to do that, we would have to go all the way to the front of the park to do that. And that would take time and effort. And I think we ended up getting halfway there when we got halfway there. We were like, yeah, we should really go back, but let's keep moving. So we get to Pecos Bill Cafe. We get into the manager's office, and he is just like not panicking, but he's just trying to get things going. We're just told we're going to open the park in less than an hour, get to work, and hop to it. And so we asked him, hey, we're here. Do we need to go and change into our uniforms? They told us to come directly here, but also to ask you. And he was like, because it's, you gotta understand, the reason why we have this utility corridor is to not, I'm going to say it this way, not to cross-contaminate the sections. You don't want a cowboy walking around with, in Tomorrowland. You don't, that's the whole point of this thing. Well, and you can get into serious trouble if, as an employee, as a cast member, if you as a cast member walk around anywhere in the park in uniform where you're not supposed to be. I was working at Pecos Bill Cafe, which is right there on, it leads, there's a part of the restaurant that, this dining area that leads into Adventureland. And we were told, okay, you can be seen around this area, which was El Pirata, or is El Pirata, I don't know. They're always like, oh, it's a seasonal thing, but I've never seen it open. So it obviously wasn't the season I was working, because that area was just additional seating for Pecos Bill. And they're like, yeah, you can go here, but if you step out, and if you can be seen from the Pirates of the Caribbean, which was right there, it's like you can get in trouble if another cast member sees you, or if a guest complains about it. So, those of us who are assigned to that area were always trying to be stealthy, like Solid Snake. Just being like, okay, we gotta clean this area, but we can't be seen. And trust me, they know if you weren't cleaning in that area. They got eyes and ears everywhere. And not even in the funny way. I mean, in the, yeah. So it's a big deal to be in the proper uniform. So we were fully expecting him to be like, get your asses back to the locker room and change up. And he looked at us and he said, put on the jackets that come, because every uniform, I believe, has its own designated jacket, or there's like a universal jacket that goes with any uniform. And I think it changes colors depending on which park you're in. So he's like, yeah, get your oversized jackets and wear that. And need I remind y'all that the uniform for the women in Pecosville Cafe is a long blue kind of, not, I don't want to say Mexican style because I don't know if it is, but it's one of those dresses. You can look it up. And the outfits that we had as park greeters were, I want to say it was like a peach, yellowish shirt with light blue pants. They looked nothing alike. So he was like, yeah, go ahead, do that. I got permission. I don't know who he got permission from, and I wasn't going to question, if it's the big cheese himself, I'm not going to argue with that. They just wanted to open the park, and they said, go ahead, put these out, put that on, and get to work cleaning. Getting the restaurant open, because, we had to go. There was, we got to get going. And I'm like, oh, shit, like, geez. They must be serious. So, being good little workers that we were, my co-workers and I, we went about, we did, we put trash bags in the cans, we took a squeegee, which I didn't even know existed until then. We took a squeegee and we cleaned, wiped out all the outside areas. We got everything ready within the hour. And I want to say this, as someone who works in Frontierland, the scariest time, like the worst time, or the, people always joking about, oh, what's it like working right there next to the Country Bear Jamboree all the time. And I'm like, it's not really that bad. Like, I can hear maybe when the doors open up into the restaurant, and I can kind of hear like the ending songs. But, and it's always, I found the walk around characters of the Country Bears to be absolutely horrifying. And, the whole joke of hillbillies, and it's like, if you hear banjos in the middle of the night, run. And we're like, ha ha ha, joking. No, the scariest part of when I worked at Pecosville Cafe or Disney was when the water for Splash Mountain was shut off. It is the quietest thing, and you don't realize how loud it is, and not in a bad way, just more of a you get used to it kind of way. It's just ambiance. It's just there. It's not so much white noise because that would put you to sleep, but it's comforting because you hear even as when the park is crowded, when they have all the music playing, and even when the parades are going, you can hear the running water from the waterfall, and it just feels right. So having it shut off for that little bit of time, I was sitting here working, and I'm like, God, I just sat through a Category 1 hurricane. Granted, I slept through a Category 1 hurricane like it was nothing. But something's off about this. Something is wrong, and another cast member was like, yeah, what is it? And we figured it out. It was like, oh my God, Splash Mountain's turned off. And so when it got turned back on again, it was like that sense of normalcy had returned. Oh my God, everything's okay. The park is really opening now. Because before then, I wasn't going to sit there and say it doesn't feel like the park's going to open. It was just, it didn't feel right. Something didn't feel right. And once they turned the water back on, it was like, okay, I am ready. I am so ready to work now. And so 12 o'clock hit, the park was ready to be opened again. And it wasn't until 12:30 or 1 that the first set of guests showed up. And let me tell you, when we saw this first group of many walking down from, the path, they're walking down the path and they're heading from Main Street, USA, and all. You thought that they were heroes returning from the war or something, because cast members were out. We were sitting out there, standing out there of our establishments, applauding and cheering them and welcoming them, And I can't. And these were the ones who were at the resort, and I didn't know what they went through. And most of them, they were just like, they're like, yeah, Disney World, it's open. So by 1:00 or 1:30, we had non-hotel guests showing up. And things were kind of getting back to normal. Kind of. I say kind of because we have, at the time, the Share a Dream, I think it's like Share a Dream Come True parade. We had that, and that always happens at 3:00 where I'm stationed, which is Frontierland, where it starts. Even though people will approach us and say, what time is the 3:00 parade? And we have to sit there and say it with a straight ass face going, 3:00. But in their defense, what they mean to say is, where is from this point on, when does the 3:00 parade actually start or show up? So, they just, you just don't want to say all those words. Who blames me? Words hard. I don't like words sometimes. So we were like, okay, so what are we going to do about that? Or what they plan on doing about that? And manager said, we'll know when we know. Because the Pecos Bill Cafe is one of the popular places for those watching in Frontierland. And we'll get a lot of people coming in from Adventureland and, to come see the parade, which is at 3:00. And so eventually it was told to us, or it was said, okay, we're still waiting for cast members who are at their homes to show up, not to show up, but to be able to make it here, because traffic and all that jazz. And, it's like we got to wait for them to show up. And so we're pushing back the parade from 3:00, and we're going to start tentatively around 5. I think it was 5. And so, we didn't make an announcement, but when guests would ask us, hey, what time does the parade start? We'll say it's been pushed back to about 5. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And I will say this, the attitude of the guests, most of them, the majority of them were just happy to be in the park. They were just happy that this hurricane, which, months ago, like month earlier, saw devastate an entire city, or those who have been following this hurricane in particular, they saw the damage it did to, Central and Latin America and all, and they were just happy that either they were alive and at Disney World. How interesting of a story would that be to tell someone, yeah, I was there, I was at a Disney resort when this hurricane hit. I mean, not something I'd put on my bucket list, but it's certainly something I'd be like, it's like I could have picked worse places to be during a hurricane. Mainly my house. I mean, and even, this is not just for guests, this is like for cast members. I slept in a arcade kiosk until about noon or some shit. So of course, when they asked me, hey, we have employees that cannot come in at their scheduled time, could you stay longer? I'd be like, yeah, I slept, I'm good, more money. Because the overtime pay for Disney was extremely generous. And I've yet to come to work at a place that is generous in those means. But when you're, Walt Disney World Resort, and you make more money than Jesus, you can kind of get away with having some good perks here and there. So, most of the guests handled this whole situation fairly good. They're like, yeah, okay. So we had to stay in our hotels for the first half of the morning. The parks were, with the exception of the Animal Kingdom, of course, they all had their hours extended. So, like, instead of closing at, say, 8 or 9, they're like, yeah, we're going to stay open until about, midnight. Which, it's plenty of enough time, and it's not something that they usually did at that time period. You usually do that for like the summer months, not so much the fall and winter months. And because a hurricane had literally just passed through, there was this huge cold front. And so a lot of guests, it was comfortable. It was very comfortable. I had to wear that big, bulky blue, water-resistant jacket my whole shift, but I didn't sweat. I did not sweat. So it's one of those where it's like, okay, so the parade got delayed, but this is not a bad situation to be in. Not according to this one guest. I mean, when she asked us, and of course, why are you asking someone at Pecosville Cafe about the parade when they have nothing to do with the parade or have no power over the parade? It's simply that we're right there where the parade starts. And so, and at Disney, us cast members were told it doesn't matter what position you're in or what your role is. If a guest asks you a question, you either provide the answer or you direct them to someone who can. So, me being a busser at Pecosville, if someone comes up to me and says, when are the show times for this event in Epcot, let's say, for example, say they're doing the American Pavilion, they want to know what time, if I don't have the answer, I either direct them to someone who has the answer, or I find out the answer myself. You don't just say, ma'am, I'm a busser at Pecosville, I don't know anything about Epcot. You don't do that at Walt Disney World. You don't have to. Anyways, it costs you nothing to be nice. Sometimes. That being said, so guests would come up to us and constantly ask about, the parade or this or that, and we'd try to provide the answer if we had one, or direct them to where they could go to get an answer. So we had this one lady who, when she found out and when she was told, either by us or someone, that the parade was pushed back until 5, she demanded to see a manager. And I'm thinking, and the manager who was there, who had been there since I don't know how long, probably, if not as long as I was in the park, probably longer. And this was the nice guy. This was the, all cast members at Disney are nice, but this guy went above and beyond. Like, he was not just for guests, he did it for his employee, for the cast members too. So I was like, okay, I'll let you go see him, or I'll take you to him, or I'll bring him to you. I think that's what I ended up doing. And so, I'm there. I don't know why I was there. I could have just walked away. But I was there, and I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And so she complains to him about this. And in the most Disney fashion, somehow, he not only explains the situation, tells her, hey, does the whole Disney, we're sorry for this inconvenience, and offers her some kind of compensation for her troubles, which I think was like a free meal or something, or a coupon to some, or a discount off the meal there. I can't remember. He did all of that, and then somehow, without ever losing his smile, just shames her, reminds her that people in Mexico, that people in Latin America, in Central America, in the Bahamas, in the Caribbeans, had either lost their homes or were killed. And that she was making a big deal about having to wait an additional either hour and a half or something for a parade. And she went silent. She didn't even accept the whatever coupon or whatever thing he was trying to give her to be like, hey, look, sorry for this inconvenience. She just left. And I don't know if he ever got reprimanded for that. And, he thought, oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this. And if he did, it's none of my business. But I was like, I just looked at him. And he was like, dang, I lost it with her, didn't I? And I'm like, yeah, but understandably so. I mean, and this was before the day of Karen. So this was like the predated Karen. And was it unprofessional of him to do that? Yeah. I mean, let's face it. You should never take it out on your guest, and I don't even know if he was doing that because he was stressed or if it was because he was just so appalled by her attitude that he was like, no, you're fussing at my employees who have nothing to do with this situation and wanting to pull me away from my duties, which is helping run the kitchen, which is horribly understaffed right now because we have employees who cannot get to work due to, reasons XYZ because of a hurricane. I don't know. And, now that I'm older and wiser, I can see where he was in the wrong there, that he should have handled it better. But at the time, and maybe it's still today, I was cheering for him. I was like, you go, my good sir. You go. Because there is understandably upset that, your vacation is being compromised. And then there's that. Sometimes you gotta put things into perspective. And I'm sorry that lady felt like, maybe we shouldn't have came after her that strong. But at the same time, it's like, lady, really? People are dead. People are dead. And you're upset because your 3 o'clock parade got pushed back to 5. Okay. However, barring that little incident, the rest of the day went fairly well. And as I said, she and people like her were in the minority. Most of the people who showed up at the park were just happy to be there. They were just happy and they were grateful. And it was probably the nicest any of the guests were with us. Not saying that guests would get mean or be intentionally mean, but usually by the time they get to the Pecosville Cafe, which is usually during lunchtime, they're hungry, they're tired, they were not prepared for this August to September heat. They thought, oh, the heat's only going to happen during this season. And it's like, no, you do not understand Florida weather. You do not understand. It doesn't even have to be a hurricane. It's like any time of the year, even sometimes in winter. And Florida weather is not that much different from Louisiana weather, except for the fact that I find Florida weather to be a lot more bipolar. To be a lot more, because weather summers in Louisiana are as such. Morning, muggy. Before noon, muggy. Noon to 2 o'clock, downpour. I mean, like, hurricane levels downpour. It's bad. But then, usually around 2 or 3 o'clock, the rain stops. And then you have a sauna for the rest of the day. And not even at night does it kind of cool down. But here's the thing about Louisiana weather versus Florida weather. Louisiana weather follows a certain pattern. Florida weather takes that pattern and says, but what if we do this instead? And instead of having like one big torrential downpour, it's like you'll have mini torrential downpours spaced throughout the day. You know, there's no. The one thing it does follow is that usually the morning is going to be less likely to rain. But once noon hits, it could rain at any point, and it could be like a drizzle, or it could be like monsoon levels, and then like 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes later, sun's out, and you're thinking, oh well, the rest of the day should be fine. It's like, no, it's going to be muggy, it's going to be miserable. You need to drink your water. It doesn't matter if it rained. If you come to the southern part of the United States, anywhere between May and November, and you are not prepared for that humidity, you're going to have a bad time. I mean, I can't tell you how many people they come into Pecosville Cafe and they're like angry, they are tired, they are beyond their limit, and they had only been in the park for about let's say 3 to 4 hours, and they're already done. Why is that? Because they were not prepared for that weather. That weather will wreck you. It will just wreck you if you are not prepared for it. As someone who has lived in the Southeast all her life, even as someone who has experienced, as I am, I can tell you that there are times that I have to catch myself, that I have to be careful, because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm about to go do a walk for my job. Let me go take care of this. Oh, I don't need water. It's just a 5-minute walk. It's just a 5-minute trek. And it's like, ha, ha, ha. You're going to be miserable the rest of the day. Not only are you soaked from head to toe from sweat, you are horrifically dehydrated to the point where you could probably pass out at any time now. So you got to be careful. Even people who live here all their lives, if you're not careful. So imagine someone coming in from out of town, out of country, out of state. It's not fun. Heat exhaustion's not fun. So we had to deal with that a lot at Pecosville Cafe. You get those who, they usually get to that part of the park around noon, and by then they're tired, they're either disenchanted or they're dehydrated, and yeah, so we had we would have a lot of guests that would just kind of like, they don't mean to snap, but they're going to snap, and we just kind of not just so much dealt with it and accepted that, well, we're going to get fussed at for that. No, it was just more like, okay, well, here, have a hamburger, have all this water, sit down, listen to the relaxing cyclic sounds of the waterfall from Splash Mountain, and then the screams, and maybe give it some time to sit down, just relax, and maybe you'll feel better in about 30 minutes or something. And if not, we can get emergency services on the way. So, and then when it does get cold in Florida, it's like unassuming cold at first, because you're thinking, oh, well, it's been hot all this time. Surely it can't get that cold. And you're like, you're wrong. So, yeah. My suggestion, not only as someone who has worked at Disney and seen the effects of, both malignant and benign of heat exhaustion, as someone who has lived in the southern states her whole life and feels this most of the year, if not on a more tame level than what poor Florida has to go through, being, surrounded on all sides by water. It's very basic, and people are like, oh, it's so typical, or it's a stereotypical response, but it's like, that doesn't make it any less important. Stay hydrated. Drink. Don't chug water. Don't chug the water, because then you'll get sick in a different way. And you'll get yourself dehydrated from puking, which is not fun. Stay hydrated. Wear loose clothing. Accept the fact that you are going to sweat buckets if you're not used to this kind of weather. And even if you are used to this weather, you're still going to sweat buckets. You may go into the park thinking, I don't want to do any of these, I don't want to go into the park doing any of these dark rides. So, Small World, Carousel of Progress. Who does that? I'm going to go I'm going to walk everywhere. I'm going to do this. But then, take the time to do those rides, if only so that you can cool down. Because if you are hot, if you are miserable, if you get yourself sick, then you have wasted money, you have wasted time. It's just, be smart about it. No one is going to judge you harshly for going on It's a Small World just to cool down. I mean, that's the only reason I go on it. I hate It's a Small World, but I'll go on it just to cool down. Or do the better option. Go to Tomorrowland, ride the People Mover, and just chill. It's a short line. You're protected from the elements. You get to see some cool behind the scenes stuff, mainly, Space Mountain. When my family went to Disney recently, like a year ago now, my sister participated in the Star Wars 5K, I think that's what it was. It was Star Wars themed. It was like Rebel versus the Rebels versus the First Order or something, or Empire. She has sided with the Rebels, of course, because she has good taste. And so we were going to meet at the Magic Kingdom for kind of a brunch thing. And after that was done, it was like, oh, let's go do all this stuff. Let's go do this. And I was like, to my brother, I was like, I looked at him, he looked at me, and we were both like, we're going on the People Mover. And we're going to stay on that People Mover for a long time. Because by that time in our vacation, we were just kind of done. So I went to the Magic Kingdom on this trip for two things. A good breakfast, which we got, and the People Mover. Because, it's like, we're done with this vacation. I just want to sit. I just want to relax. And I think after that, or rather, it was like, oh, I don't want to do this. So after that, I think we went to Epcot. I don't know. The older I get, the more I come to appreciate and love Epcot. That wasn't always the same. And I don't know if that will be the same when when all this, excuse me. Okay, well I messed that up. When all the Marvel stuff kicks in. Or maybe I'll like it more. Who knows? So, that's my take on it. Basically the same thing that Disney Food Blog said. You know, plan out your day. Go either super early or super late. Stay hydrated. Especially stay hydrated. You know, and I'm not even going to judge people for buying a bottle of water at the park. I'm not. Because, you know, if that's the only thing you have to stay hydrated, I'd rather people waste money on that, on a bottle of water, than, wasting money on a medical bill because you didn't drink water, you didn't take care of yourself at a theme park. I guarantee, as much as a waste of money a bottle of Dasani water is, it's going to be less than a medical bill of heat exhaustion, or worse, heat stroke. And yes, I did see a heat stroke in progress. Not fun. I was sitting there going, oh geez, I really hope this person doesn't die. Not just because of my trauma, but because, his family was like right there and his kids were crying, and it was just like, all because he just didn't drink up. He didn't, it was like, oh, I don't need water. It's like, yes, you do. You may think you can handle it, but best to be sure and take care of yourself. Because what's the point of going on vacation if you're going to get yourself sick and not have fun? That benefits no one, especially you. Alright, so, I think that's it. I got other Disney stories I could tell or would like to tell if anyone is interested. But I just want to do a huge shout out to the Disney Food Blog for, not only being extremely helpful in helping, plan vacations, because I've been listening to, I'll be going to Disney again in November, barring any unforeseen circumstances. And listening to their channel has probably, it's like, oh my god, I didn't even realize I could do that. And I've been to Disney World a lot. I worked at Disney World, and I still didn't know about some of these things. So, kudos to them, and kudos for them inspiring me to make this video. So if you hated this video, you know who to blame. Disney Food Blog, not me. Just kidding. I love y'all. So, alright, that's it. I don't really know how to end this besides to take care of yourselves. Take their advice or anyone's advice, anyone you would trust. If you want my advice, I would probably just redirect you to Disney Food Blog, because it's like, yeah, they do it better, and she has a much beautiful voice than I do. So if you had to choose between listening to me or listening to the wonderful lady at Disney Food Blogs, whose name escapes me, I apologize. Go with her. So, y'all have a great day, night, whatever time you hear this, and be well.